Hey, hey, go getters. How are you? I'm just making sure that we are now streaming live on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. For those who are joining me live, definitely go ahead and drop a hello in the chat, maybe even shout out where you're tuning in. And I've been in this joy phase. So if you're here with me live or even on the replay, please go ahead and share something that brought you joy today. It could be the simplest thing of you were able to lay around with your warm, cozy blanket. I'm here for it because it was definitely cold here in New Jersey. Um, so here we are, the actual last live in our stream in regards to follow up and just making sure that we're not just allowing that to go to the wayside. We want to make sure that we are creating some type of system around our follow up that allows us to see the results of that. So, all right, let's talk about something that's actually hurting way too many business owners, and it's your follow ups. So, let me ask you, how many times have you had like an amazing conversation? Maybe it's with a potential client, maybe it's with a networking associate you met, but you just felt like you were ready to work with them and they weren't ready to work with you, maybe because you heard nothing, there was those crickets or silence, or maybe they vanished in like thin air, because that actually happens, y'all. So I know the feeling oh too well. I love to share that when I actually started Virtually Centered Solutions, I assumed that if someone didn't respond, they weren't interested. And so I'd stop following up. And later, I'd see them working with someone else, offering the same service. And I discussed that with them, but I realized I wasn't being ghosted. I was actually I just wasn't following up the right way. And so if you're here with me live or whether you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and drop an emoji in the chat to let me know you're here. If you've ever experienced that, if that's something that resonates, and if you've had someone show interest and then disappear, also please just let me know, and let you know I'm here with you. I feel you. And so today we're going to be fixing that. I'm sharing the biggest mistakes that people make when following up and how to really fix them so they could stop losing potential clients just to silence. So while we're getting settled in, if you can drop anything in the comments, let me know that you're here. Let me know that you're listening and tuned in. We're going to get into mistake number one. And mistake number one is you're giving up too soon. And what does that look like? So if you're following up just once or twice and then you give up, you're leaving money on the table, period. And I'll lean in for that because studies have shown that 80% of sales require at least 5 follow ups, but most business owners, we stop after 2. And I say we because I've also been in that boat. And so that means that you could be this close to landing a client, but you stop following up too soon. And let's be real, people are busy. The life is lifing, as they say. And we want to make sure that we take that into consideration. So your email or message is not at the top of their to-do list. I love to say to my kids that your emergency doesn't become my urgency all of a sudden. And so we want to fix it using the 5-touch rule. And this is minimum. As I said, the 80% needs at least that five line of touch. So we want to think like follow-up number 1 is 2 to 3 days after your initial chat. Maybe follow-up number 2 is a week later and you're offering a helpful tip. Follow-up number 3 could be 10 to 14 days later. Maybe you're checking in on if they've had a chance to take a look at the tip you sent, Or follow up number 4 could be a month later. You're sharing maybe a client success story, kind of a reminder of what you do and why you're in their ecosphere. And follow up number 5 is a final check to see maybe if they want to do, if you're local, maybe they want to do a in-person meetup, or maybe if they're not, because let's face it, the now that we're able to do virtual connections, it allows us to take it a bit further and expand our reach. So that was just a high level kind of formula or 5 touch rule as a minimum. And that was follow up number 1 with the 2 to 3 days, follow up number 2 within a week later, follow up number 3 10 to 14 days later, follow up number 4 a month later, and follow up number 5 being that final check in, whether it be 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. So I like to give the caveat of you have to think in the life cycle of your business. What is the touch points that's relevant for you in the time frame? I shared a story before that I actually went to a conference. I didn't reach out in this actual follow-up rule. It was almost a month later that my first touch point was, and I almost gave up. But what I would love to share is that in that mindset of feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of like a rebel here, not following the rule in itself, I would have gave up and lost connection calls, possible collaborations with my business, just the opportunity to grow my network if I would have done that. And to be honest with you, some of the recipients said it was literally perfect timing because thinking of the season that we were in, it was the holiday season. So it gave them time to circle back to what I was saying and being able to respond at a time that was convenient and timely for them. So I say all that to say, keeping all this organized in a tool such as ClickUp for task management or project management, it's really helpful so you don't forget. And when it's time to follow up, you're able to track that information at a more timely manner. And let's face it, we have enough revolving slides or folders or whatever you want to call it inside of our head. So let's not make it harder than it actually needs to be. So mistake number 2 is your follow-ups sound like everyone else's. So I want you to pause for a second. Consider this fact. If your follow-up message says just checking in or wanted to follow up on my last email, that's why you're getting ignored. How many of those have each of us received? And it's very generic. It seems very robotic. And nobody is waking up thinking, wow, I hope someone checks in on me today. What are they thinking about? What are they thinking about? It's their problem. So your follow-up needs to be about them, not you. And so a fix for that is make your follow-ups more valuable. Instead of saying just checking in to see if you're still interested, maybe try something like, hey, Sarah, I remember you mentioned struggling with XYZ pain point. I came across this article, this tool or resource that I thought might be helpful. So I phrased it in this kind of templated way for you, but I love to say that if you are a person that your tone is more fun, maybe it's more personable, or maybe it's just more inviting, you want to write in your tone. This is a way to make it more personalized and not make it feel like you're just a part of their checklist for the day, just a part of their follow-up. So keeping that in mind, I want to actually hop over to share my screen. I'm going to go ahead and share a Google Sheets doc or a Google Sheet that is actually a way to also save some of these follow-up scripts. So I'm a firm believer in testing. I'm in a test phase myself. So if you, don't want to seem totally generic and you want to kind of track the messages that you're sending, see how it's resonating with your audience, see if you're getting that response you're looking for, then a way to do that is track that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So once I hop over to my screen, what you're seeing now is a follow-up tracking template that is a simpler version. I'll go ahead and share one in ClickUp later on, but for now, we're looking inside, and this is for those who may be early on in building that muscle of follow-up. And so if you notice here, it has the important information. So first name, last name, their email. If you're someone that uses phone numbers, then you can add that column and customize it to whatever information you need. I love to caveat here and say, if you're not using the phone number, then don't collect it. A lot of times we just collect information to collect it, and it becomes overwhelming and we do nothing with it. So next we'll move into, you see that they have the follow-up dates based on each stage. Again, you can customize it, add up to 5 or 10, whatever your framework is built out on as far as your follow-up system. And then here we're tracking the status. So again, this is something that can be customized. And then here, of course, notes. So this is where if there's any interest or something that stands out about that particular contact that you want to track, you could do that. But we were just recently talking about the follow-up emails, or whether it's messages, voice notes, whatever is personalized to your business. And this tab actually has follow-up templates. So again, I go back to, if this is not your tone, this is just kind of setting a framework of starting not from ground zero. So you're able to then customize this to match your tone, your persona, maybe the audience that you're talking to, and being able to not start from scratch every time. And if you look in here, you're able to then select which one you're using. So it's a quick way to have reference of, it's also a quick way to have a reference of the follow-up emails or messages that you'll use, so that again, we're centralizing and creating some system around our follow-up. So drop a fire in the chat if you have been guilty of sending a just checking in email before. And I love to say this is a safe space. We're here to learn and grow together. I'm guilty of this. So don't feel any way, and feel okay with dropping in the chat if that was you before. So we're going to get into mistake number 3. You're not tracking your follow-ups. So if you're following up with people and you're not keeping track, then you're wasting time and leaving money on the table. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, including myself, oh, I meant to follow up with so-and-so. Oh, I meant to follow up with that client or that prospect, but I forgot. That's not a mistake. It's a system problem, and capital, all caps, system problem. And so to fix that, we want to use things, depending on the stage that you're on. You may be using something like Google Sheets, like what I showed earlier, or you could be using ClickUp to track your follow-ups. And so I'm going to hop over to my screen, but first I want to explain that when I mention Google Sheets, it's to keep a simple tracker for leads, maybe your names, the follow-up dates, and response statuses. But when we get into ClickUp, we're able to set reminders for each follow-up so nothing slips through the crack. Or let's be honest, we're human, so maybe 1 or 2 will slip through the cracks, but it's lessening that amount. So I'm going to hop over to my screen. So what you're seeing now is my ClickUp screen. So this is a sample workspace, a sample list where it's a contact list example that I'm sharing in these videos. And so on this first page, I love to say, I love this contact form in the sense of we can embed it onto our website. We can copy this link here and share it with a potential person who we want to fill out. If you're working with a team or maybe have an assistant, it also creates that uniform approach of making sure the information is consistent with what gets inputted. So when we move over here, you'll see this getting started guide. So this is a firm approach of, let's say we're doing it ourselves, but we want to prepare for bringing on support. And so with that, I love to have standard operating procedures or SOPs or pretty much blueprint of processes, the step by step of how things are done and where they can reference information. So that's a way that they won't be stumbling. And so this is where the meat and potatoes is. This is where the contacts are. And I'll just open this one. So when you open this, you'll see the contact name, you'll see the status. You could see, and these again can be customized. You'll also see that you can assign due dates. You're able to set them recurring if you have a specific timeline. You're able to create custom fields where you can add, maybe this is someone you preferably connect with on Instagram, or maybe that you connect with them on LinkedIn, or maybe there's anything in particular you want to contain about these particular contacts. It allows you to do that right here. You can write notes. You're able to, even if you're working with an assistant, you're able to chat here about this particular contact if there's something that needs to be sent at a later date. And so that allows you to create this centralized approach. Now, I wanted to share that if you are someone who is looking more to create a workspace where you are you are also tracking the maybe estimated value or just a little bit more sales information, there's also a simple way to do a CRM inside of, or customer relationship management tool. And here if you're a person that loves the kind of like the Kanban style, like Trello, you're able to use it as cards. Here's where the meat and potatoes are, where it talks about the potential leads. Then you're able to see the pipeline, the sales pipeline of where each person is in that particular stage. But I want to go back here because if you click in here, you can also see that you can add notes, qualifications. Here we go again with these custom fields. And so these are just two simple ways to be able to, as we talked about, centralizing how we follow up, when we follow up, who we're following up with, and placing it inside of some type of tracker. So you don't need a fancy CRM software, even though I definitely support them. And I'm never going to say you don't fully need it. But the goal of this really is just for us to build that consistency, stop leaving money on the table. And so these softwares, whether a Google Sheet or ClickUp, is what you need to stay on top of your follow-ups. So last but not least, you might be dropping those long-term leads and I want to say just because, someone isn't ready now, that doesn't mean that they won't be ready later. So if you don't follow up, then they'll forget about you when they are actually ready. So I can't tell you how many times I've had someone come back maybe months later and say, Tanisha, I've been following your content and either I'm finally ready to work with you, or what's the next step, or because they stayed in touch, or we either kept in their ecosphere so that we could stay top of mind. So a way to fix this is through your nurture list, whether in the Google Sheets or in ClickUp. If a lead isn't ready now, add them to a nurture list, check in every 2 to 3 months, not with those generic messages, but with something helpful, not a sales pitch, and share an industry update, maybe a free resource. Maybe you create blogs, or maybe there's an industry specific blog to share with them. Or maybe you have webinars or live events. maybe that's an invitation for you to send to them. So I hope that this was helpful in some type of way. Most of your future clients are in this category. So nurture them right. And when they're ready, you will be the first they call. So I hope you've enjoyed this live stream series in regards to follow up. We are actually having our follow up workshop that's happening on February 19th. This is where I'm going to be deep diving with you into follow up strategies, automation behind it, and we'll be talking scripts. So grab your seat now. I'll be excited to have you. I'll also make sure we link back to the workshop. And as always, I'm cheering you on. Love y'all.